Yes, hello. Is this the Democratic Party? Yeah, I was calling. Who am I? My name is James Williams. Yep. I was calling because I have some bad news for you. I have been scanning the news today and looking at all the events that are going on. And did you know that your Pope died today? Okay. Okay. Did you know that Kanye West came out today and talked about when he was 14 years old, he used to suck on his cousin's lollipop? Oh, you're aware of that. So, what I'm trying to figure out is, do you consider yourself to be an American or American? Huh? Are you an American or an American?
Hold on one second. We about to get to the bottom of this, ladies and gentlemen. This don't make no sense whatsoever. Welcome to the Dark Waters channel, where we explore mysteries, figure out the truth, dive into politics, and anything else you want to know about. That's what we doing over here, baby. Let's go. What's up, ladies and gentlemen? The one and only James Williams. Dark Waters in the back. Listen, I'm about ready to touch on something that I was trying to hit on earlier today, and I couldn't find it. I mentioned this, but I couldn't find it because I be spotting it early in the day, and it don't really be hitting the news until later. So X is where news is made. News breaks on Twitter, and then it hits everything else. So at 6 o'clock in the morning, I'm on Twitter, boom, 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 reading what's going on, listening, hit that gym, boom, 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 boom. By the time I sit at the desk, a lot of the things ain't even rolled out on Twitter. You know what I'm saying? So, they haven't rolled out into the major news. And so if I lose it, I don't have it. That's what happened with this story. The Florida Methodist Church lights a candle for Kilmar Abrego Garcia on Easter. Now, this is what I was referring to earlier when I talked about how in Sam Hell, and this is the They Them Church, by the way. How in the hell is you sitting there lighting candles on Easter for damn criminals? And who goes to a church that lights candles? Now this candle, I'm gonna let you hear it. This candle was wrapped. I'm gonna let you hear this clown say this. But better yet, it's better you just shut up and let the people hear. Shut up, James. Shut up. Let the people hear.
In a spirit of solidarity, more than 50 justice-seeking congregations around the country have been lighting a candle of peace, hope, and justice. This candle represents Christ's light shining even in the midst of barbed wire policies that wrap tighter each day. This morning, we light the candle of peace, hope, and justice for all who are being labeled alien enemies and deported, shackled by fear that they will be next, or waiting for news that their loved one is okay. We continue to pray for Kilmar Abrego Garcia, whom the Supreme Court has ordered must be returned home after our government unlawfully kidnapped him to El Salvador. We lift up Arturo Suarez Trejo, who was denied the chance to meet his newborn daughter and instead sent from Texas Detention Center to El Salvador. And we remember the 236 other men living in cage-like conditions in the Terrorism Confinement Center, despite only 32 of them having been convicted of any serious crimes. Scripture tells us that on Good Friday, Jesus promised a thief hanging beside him that they would be together in paradise. Now, while we don't expect paradise from our government, we do expect due process. While we do not need our leaders to emulate the grace of Jesus, we yearn for any official who wears a cross to speak words that mirror Jesus' mercy and compassion instead of Pontius Pilate's fear and contentment. Jesus declared, "The truth will set you free." So God, make every government official tell the truth. That these detention centers have more in common with concentration camps than with prisons. Because a prison, by definition, operates within a judicial system. A person is arrested, charged, and tried, and if found guilty, sentenced. A concentration camp, on the other hand, functions outside the law. People are detained without a trial, without conviction, held indefinitely, not for what they've done, but for who they are, for their religion, their ethnicity, their politics, or their identity as part of a group deemed a threat. And so we pray not only for justice, but for truth.
Now let me ask y'all a question. Is there a border in heaven? I mean, just think about it. Do you think there's border patrol in heaven? Can anybody just run their behind into heaven? And this is the problem with these liberal progressive pastors, this they-them church, because that's what it is. It's a they-them church. Reverend Andy Olivier, he, him, his pastors, and that's what he identifies himself as, he, him, his, of Allendale United Methodist Church of Florida. There are rules and laws. There are spiritual rules and spiritual laws. For example, the reason why Jesus Christ died is because the wages of sin is death. This is Easter. The first thing he should have been saying, Jesus, thank you for the sacrifice that you made, for the wages of sin is death. If there's a wage of sin, that's death. Is there not a wage for breaking the laws of a nation? For illegally crossing a border? Let's not go into the fact that the man that he's talking about beat his wife. Let's not go into the fact that he's an MS-13 gang member, which MS-13 is a gang that is satanic in its origins. Never mind the fact that in order to be an MS-13 gang member, the other gang members have to watch you murder a person. Never mind all the common sense things that we know about gang initiation. Never mind any of that. Like I was saying, the basis of it is he broke the law. And then he invokes the thief on a cross with Jesus. The thief on a cross with Jesus asks for salvation. He asked for salvation. That's what the thief did. He was one over here, one over here. This one over here asked for salvation. Which is why people tell me with DW, you know, you can't go to heaven unless you've been baptized. Well, I guess the thief that was with Jesus didn't get to heaven because he damn sure didn't get baptized right there and now. But Jesus said, you will be with me. Nonetheless, that's deep theological issues that I'm not going to go into. But the point I'm making is this. The audacity of him to stand in a pulpit and compare the salvation of a thief who asked the Lord to save him, inquired of the Lord, to a damn criminal, to a damn child trafficker and a gang member. See, this is what happens when you have progressive liberals in church. And watch what happens to this church. Trust me. Watch the judgment that falls upon this church. DW, you don't know that there's going to be judgment. Judgment starts in the house of the Lord, is what the scripture says. And if he clearly can't detect that when the election passed, the rejection of all the idols, which we covered all of this, those who've been watching me, we covered it real time during the election. I was like, hey, all these people will come out. They brought every idol on stage. America's rejecting the idols. And we talked about all the things that America was rejecting, right? And then we got confirmation this Easter, and we've had confirmation all the way of Holy Week that the White House is filled with praying people. Never once heard Joe Biden come out and say the name Jesus ever while he was in the White House. You hear it all over the White House now. You hear Donald Trump saying it. You hear Caroline Lovett saying it. You see him praying. So we know who's in the White House right now. So this church is diametrically opposed to what I will call the actual seat of power in our nation, which is the White House, which is occupied by Christ. That's how I know that church is going to get judged. But I just want you guys to see it. Now, from a spiritual perspective, there's a lot going on as it pertains to the church. Judgment is hitting the church. So we had the Pope die. And everybody know that was a very progressive liberal Pope. And then when we come over here, I'm kind of ready to talk about it. we have the candidates for the next pope, while simultaneously we have a revival starting in the Catholic Church. But we have Pope Francis, who was a progressive, extremely liberal pope. Nobody can say I'm lying, because we go back and listen to the things he said. He was hanging out with Muslims, talking about Islam. Never mind the fact that Muslims and Christians, well, Christians went on the Crusades because of what Muslims were doing. People be like, DW, what about the Great Crusades where the Christians went out and killed all the people? No. Go back and read your history. They came through chopping off heads. Man. And then people rode out. But nonetheless, so we have multiple people who could replace Pope Francis. And we find ourselves in a situation where we have some quite liberal people and some conservative people. This guy is supposed to be the head guy, Cardinal Luis Tegel of the Philippines, currently standing as one of the favorite among odds makers. 67-year-old Tango will perhaps best represent a continuity papacy, having been described as the Asian Pope Francis. If elected, the Filipino cardinal will become the first pope chosen from Asia after Francis became the first pope chosen from South Africa. Cardinal Tango, who reportedly prefers to be referred to by his nickname Chito rather than by his clerical title, has argued against the church taking a judgmental stance and has been critical of those who have used harsh words about homosexuals and divorced people. Harsh words that were used in the past to refer to gays and divorced and separated people and unwed mothers in the past, that they were quite severe. He said in 2015, many people who belonged to those groups were branded and led to their isolation from the wider society. A liberal guy, super duper liberal. Then there's Cardinal Petro Parolin. This cardinal, 70 years old, has also close ties to Francis and has served as his Secretary of State since 2023. So we know he's going to be liberal, right? This is the guy clearly that got into it with J.D. Vance. Last week, Cardinal Parolin met with U.S. Vice President J.D. Vance, during which the Vatican said there was an exchange of opinions on issues like countries affected by war, political tensions, and difficult humanitarian situations, with particular attention paid to migrants, refugees, and prisoners. Of course, right? Now, Peter Erdo of Hungary, 72-year-old Archbishop, I don't know how to pronounce that name, of Esztergom, Budapest, represents one of the more conservative potential candidates. A canon law scholar, Erdo has deferred with Pope Francis on areas such as divorce, arguing that the church cannot change its position towards people who divorce and remarry, saying it is impossible for the church to recognize such a union while the other divorced partner is still alive. The Hungarian cardinal also broke with Pope Francis on the issue of mass migration, arguing at the outset of the European migrant crisis in 2015 that for Western nations to adopt an open borders approach would be akin to permitting human trafficking. Just the kind of guy you want in the Pope seat. He also has been critical of the media's portrayals of the Catholic faith, saying in 2012 that it is often full of lies, misinforming the public as to the context of our faith, as well as what makes up the reality of the church. Outspoken, conservative. The point that we're about to see is the church is going through a great transition, and the Catholic Church is either getting ready to go through a revival or it's going to go way worse. It's going to go way, way down into the gutter. All right. Another prominent conservative canon, Cardinal Sarah, could be the first pope to hail from Africa since the 15th century, and the first to come from sub-Saharan Africa. The 79-year-old has been one of the most outspoken cardinals in the Vatican on conservative issues, often offering contrary positions to those of Pope Francis. Example, 2019, Sarah urged that it was wrong to attempt to use the word of God to promote migration. He said that many illegal migrants who came to the Western nations find themselves in a condition akin to slavery. The cardinal, child slavery, sex trafficking. The cardinal has also been critical of globalist institutions such as the European Union, saying that Brussels no longer protects the people within it, it protects the banks. This contemporary desire to globalize the world, ridding it of nations with their distinctive characteristics, is sheer madness, Sarah said. The African cardinal has also claimed that the far left-wing gender ideology and the Islamic vision of groups like ISIS are almost like two apocalyptic beasts that must be confronted today, while comparing them to murderous ideologies of the past. What Nazi fascism and communism were in the 20th century, the Western homosexual and abortion ideologies and Islamic fanaticism are today. So you see, there's varying differences in the popes, the potential people to become pope. And you can see, if I'm not mistaken, the seat of the pope is called the seer, the see, S-E-E, papal see, cardinal see. It's the seat. It's the seat. Whoever takes that seat, which technically is a throne, their ideas and their ideology is what overshadows the movement of that church. So we're in a situation where, for Catholics, as far as I'm concerned, it's about, they're going to need to be very outspoken and say, hey, we need to stand on biblical principles. And it doesn't mean that everybody's going to like everything that's been said. At the end of the day, the Lord is the judge of all when it comes to divorce, when it comes to remarriage, when it comes to homosexuality, when it comes to those things. None of these men going to judge. The Lord is going to judge because the Lord judges people's hearts. But the stance of the church really cannot change. It should not change on those things because now the church is conforming to the world. And we've seen what has happened since the church conformed to the world. The world should be conforming to the church. Another potential sub-Saharan pope, 76 years old, Cardinal Peter Turkson, will likely serve as a more liberal pontiff than Cardinal Sarah, championing such issues as climate change and poverty. So we got a climate change pope. Matteo Zippi of Italy, the 69-year-old Zippi is also widely regarded as a member of the progressive wing of the church and would likely represent a continuity papacy in line of the legacy of Pope Francis. When did this come out? April 21st. Melania and I will go on to the funeral of Pope Francis in Rome. We look forward to being there. So it's very critical for the world because the Catholic form of religion is massive around the world, that the Pope, whoever sits in the seat of the seer, the see, ends up being a conservative. All right, we're back. Watch this, please.
兄弟们，真的好累呀，快撑不下去了。
We are so tired. We can barely hold on. Every day, I wake up to an empty assembly line, an empty workshop, and rusty machines. By the end of the day, we barely manage to make a few pairs of shoes. Even the quality checks are finishing early. We can't even cut a few pieces of fabric with the mold every day, and there's a mountain of unsold stock piling up. I won't say more. I have to go borrow some money to pay the workers' wages.
The cargo ships now look like ghosts at the Shanghai port. Routes to the US are nearly shut down, with capacity dropping by 40% and bookings plummeting by 63.5%. At Wuhu's Huangni-Tian anchorage, there are ships everywhere with no place to go. Meanwhile, the yuan is depreciating quickly, falling nearly 10% against the euro in just 1 month, and the financial market is unstable. On the streets, there are fewer people, and shops are closing down or being transferred. Economic vitality is slowly fading. The Economist Intelligence Unit predicts that if US President Trump raises tariffs by 60%, China's GDP growth will lose 2.5 percentage points between 2025 and 2027. This has led to the rise of the yuan depreciation theory, with many seeing it as a lifeline for China's foreign trade. But is this really the solution, or is it a...
Now, that's what was happening to the US dollar. Remember? The dollar losing its value. People like, man, you know, the US dollar has lost over 99% of its value, man. That dollar you got right there, man, is only worth
1 penny is worth 10 cents. This is what happens when all of your exporting is shut off. The value of your currency is depreciated. Yeah. So economists been saying this about America for a long time. For a long, long time. Them tariffs is doing them dirty. It's doing them dirty. So them coming out threatening other countries, of course they have to threaten other countries, because a part of the negotiations for the United States with other countries is that, hey, listen, we're going to do business with you, but you're not going to do this with China. That's why Donald wants to be involved in all the conversations. That's why he set them up. Everybody getting hit with all these high tariffs, they yanked them off and left them all on China. Yeah, it wasn't about them people in the first place. It was about our biggest competitor and our biggest rival, China. That's what it was about, ladies and gentlemen.
Poisonous pill. A simple market rule tells us not all problems can be solved by printing money. The limitations of depreciation. Chinese manufacturing accounts for only 5 to 20% of the global supply chain cost, so the price advantage from depreciation is almost negligible. Let's break it down with Lululemon yoga pants. They sell in the US for $118, but the Chinese factory only gets $6. Even if the yuan depreciates by half, from 7.5 yuan to 15 yuan per dollar, the factory's...
You trying to tell me Lululemon costs $6? $6 for them damn $100 pair of yoga pants y'all running around with on, girl. You heard that? $6. $6, man.
Cost would only drop to $3. A negligible amount in the eyes of the brand. Worse still, currency fluctuations cause raw material costs to soar, leading to unstable quotes from Chinese factories. This instability is scarier than high prices. Brands would rather place orders in places with stable currencies like Vietnam or India. So it's not that Chinese prices are inflated or too expensive. Even with a 145% tariff, the cost for Chinese factories to produce yoga pants is only $15, while Lululemon still has nearly $50 in profit. The real reason brands are shifting orders is the threat of higher tariffs and geopolitical risks. The trend of decoupling from China isn't something that depreciating the yuan can stop. Lululemon has already moved 15% of its production to Vietnam. Nike has reduced its procurement from China from 35% to 18%. Apple's production capacity in India has doubled. Major retailers are setting a cap on single-country sourcing at no more than 30% and require a 6-month stockpile in the US-Mexico region. The large orders that Chinese factories relied on for survival are being slashed. Amazon has directly asked suppliers for non-China supply chain certification in 2024, and the rejection rate for Chinese sellers has surged by 80%.
Whoa.
Walmart and Costco are building new warehouses in Mexico, and their procurement from China has dropped by over 20% in the first quarter. The depreciation of the yuan will not save orders. Instead, it destroys people's livelihoods and financial stability. China imports 500 million tons of crude oil, 1.1 billion tons of iron ore, and 90 million tons of soybeans annually. If the yuan depreciates to a ratio of 15 to 1, the cost of these three basic commodities will skyrocket. Gasoline prices will rise from 8 yuan to 15 yuan per liter.
Welcome to what's been going on in America, ladies and gentlemen. Let's see what they're going to say about the beef, and then we're
Pork
done.
will increase from 40 yuan per kilogram to 60 yuan.
Bam.
And the consumer price index will rise accordingly. Steel prices will soar.
That look real unsanitary. That looks super unsanitary. Like, I don't know, that looks super unsanitary. You're just chopping that on the side of the van, man. That looks super unsanitary. The point I'm making here is this. China ain't got no cards to play. They can't be around here threatening the whole world. But nonetheless, they're threatening the entire world. They're trying to punk everybody. What you gonna do? You gonna fight the whole world? You can't fight the whole world. You gonna do invade the whole world? You can't invade the whole world, man. It don't work that way.
Threatening retaliation against any country that sides with the U.S. in a trade war, warning the world could slide back into the law of the jungle. Markets selling off once again on trade worries. The Dow is down, S&P down almost 3%, and NASDAQ down over 3%. Still, the White House wheeling and dealing. South Korea's top trade negotiator lands in D.C. this week. Norway's prime minister meets with President Trump on Thursday, and a deal with Japan could be imminent.
it looks like we're north of 15 now of legitimate, serious offers on the table. If you start seeing schedules, world leader visits, my guess is it's a good sign, really, really good sign that we're close to the finish.
Okay, so we're talking some finish lines here, Charles. Or Kevin Hassett is anyway.
Yeah, at least Kevin Hassett.
What do you think about that?
I think the timing is pretty good. Over the weekend, Apollo put out this pretty intriguing work that showed that historically the average trade deal takes 18 months to put together and another 45 months to implement. Wow. So 90 days against that would be amazing, absolutely amazing. Now we know, of course, that's part of it would have been, I think this is one of the reasons the administration came so hard to begin with, right? A lot of that's the back and forth. We meet, you meet, let's meet there, let's meet here. Cutting all of that out, creating a greater sense of urgency, and maybe on our end also being able to do things like regulatory reform and things like that to expedite those things. But it does give you it does really put into perspective just how big of an undertaking this is. And it's the sooner we get a big deal like a Japan, for instance, I think the better it will be. And because it's you don't necessarily need a whole lot immediately per se, as long as you get a big one that sets the precedents, right? That becomes a template for all of the rest, so to speak. And Japan being wooed a little bit by China, of course, they have a really adversarial relationship otherwise. And even their top diplomats saying, hey, listen, we're not going to bow to everything America wants, which acknowledges we will bow to something that America wants. Right. And so if we can get someone in that region of the world, particularly the second largest economy in that region of the world, it would be huge, and it would really be a big sigh of relief, I think.
So, Taylor, you look at markets. You got Kevin Hassett.
I wonder why the Democrats are not saying that the president of China should be arrested for market manipulation. Because his statement drove the markets down by 10%, 12%, and 18%. And I guarantee you again, if you were to go and look at the shorts expiration dates, there probably was some shorts that were set to expire today or tomorrow to manipulate the markets. The way we'll know if it's tomorrow is tomorrow the Trump administration comes out and says something to boost the stock market. You see, that's the interesting thing about the Democrats coming out saying, oh, he's manipulating the markets. He's driving news to manipulate the markets. Well, foreign nations do the exact same thing to the American market. In fact, every time China comes out and says something, Trump comes out and says something about China, he crashes their market. So we clearly have market wars going on. And we clearly have Chinese companies on the S&P 500, which should, in my opinion, should be removed. And I'm not sure how many U.S. companies we have on the Chinese stock market, but I'm pretty sure there are quite a few. Decoupling, we will see more of when you start to see companies getting taken off these S&P 500 and the NASDAQ and the Dow Jones Industrial. But nonetheless, we are in the middle of an economic war. And I want to remind you that Donald Trump came out and said we have weapons. Yes, we have weapons that nobody's ever heard of. Weapons, we're powerful. We're a powerful nation. So powerful. We got weapons. Nobody knows what the hell they are. And then the guy came out and says, yes, we control space and time. Is it not amazing that statement, we control space and time, has went into the news and out of the news like it's nothing to it? You would think that every conspiracy theory, every podcast, hey man, I'm all about the giants and the secret technologies from underneath the sea. And the pyramids got tunnels underneath them. You would think they would be digging and just dropping all within all the little conspiracy YouTube channels. Guess what? It's gone. You want to know why it's gone? Because there's no real researchers. There's few real researchers. Not everybody's a real researcher. I'm walking that back a little bit because there are people who actually do research, but the majority of the people don't do any research. You know what they do? You know what they do? They wait for somebody else to do the research. They watch their video. Then they turn around and repeat what they said with their own twist on it. How do I know? Because it happens to me all the time. It happened to me. I watched somebody say something I've been saying for 10 years. Just yesterday. 5 years ago, I was saying, it's 2020. I said, man, the pendulum of darkness is swinging. I said it live on Heather Wade's show. The pendulum of darkness is swinging into darkness with this shutdown. And when it swings back, the light is going to swing back 10 times harder. Then you turn around 5 years later, everybody repeating exactly what the hell I said. Same people I know who listen. But it happens all the time. So the problem that we have is we don't have people who go out and do any research. Well, GW, why are you on a tangent like this? Why are you spazzing? I'm not really spazzing. I'm just saying. We proliferate the same talking points. In many ways, the social media has become like the mainstream media. In many ways. Yeah. Think about it. Ain't nothing I'm going to ever talk about that Alex Jones ain't talked about. I can't think of one thing that I'm going to say that Alex Jones ain't said. In some way, shape, or form. Because he's a forerunner. Front runner, man. Yeah, man. He been out front for a long time, boy. Batty boy. He been out there in the front line, boy. Boom, clock. Yeah, he been out there for a long time. But that's what we get caught into. Get caught into, instead of thinking for ourselves, biting off somebody else. I try my best to do my research and come up with my own opinions on things. And I would encourage everybody else to do the same damn thing. Now, you watch me. That's cool. Check me. Hey, DW, wrong. That's what you said wrong. Show me if I'm wrong, dog. I ain't going to be mad at you. I'm be like, damn, homie was right. I'll be the dude that come on and be like, yeah. Bobby said I was wrong about what was going on in China, and Bobby proved it. Not just Bobby was like, oh, I don't agree with you because you think you know too much because you have a YouTube channel. And I don't agree with you. I don't agree with you either. Show me the proof, but show me the evidence. Then I could be wrong, though. Back to China. The point I'm making about China is that China done lost its damn mind, and they think they're going to bully the whole world. You cannot bully the planet. You ain't strong enough to bully the planet. It's the equivalent of the Democrats coming out and saying, yeah, those nations who decide they're going to vote with Trump, y'all need to be careful because when we get back in control, we're not going to have no mercy on you. Man, that is a violation of the Hatch Act. Yeah, that's I'm going to find that. Hold on. I'm going to find that. Get out the way, Cord. Because you got to see this. Here we go. I found it. I have found it. Representative Jamie Raskin promises retaliation for those unleashing fascist chaos on America when Democrats return to power. Man, this is a violation of the Hatch Act. Let me see if they have. I want to hear what he got to say.
So I like that idea, and it's a complement to something that we need to be doing right now, which is engaging in far more work of transnational democratic solidarity with the democratic governments and the democratic movements and peoples and parties of the world.
Totally agree.
Let's be clear. He's talking about other countries.
To try to prevent the spread of the lawlessness and the fascist chaos.
He defines what's going on now as lawlessness and fascist chaos.
It's been unleashed against us, but implicit in it should be the idea that if and when we come back to power, and we will, we are not going to look kindly upon people who facilitated, to use a word of the day, who facilitated authoritarianism in our country. Because that's an assault on our Constitution and on our people.
Yeah.
Now, that sounds great. It sounds great. But what he's doing is he's threatening any nation that's in the process of negotiation with Donald Trump. So he's saying if you negotiate with Donald Trump for tariffs, then we're going to come after you. I'm speechless as the sheer level of tomfoolery that's going on and the level of non-indictedness that has happened. Yeah. I'm going to call it non-indictedness. Non-indictedness that's going on. Somebody should be indicted. We got a lot of non-indictedness. It's a non-indictednism movement going on right now. You know what I'm saying? A lot of people need to be in handcuffs, man. A lot of people need to be in handcuffs. This is crazy. Watch this. Now, I want you to understand something. I want you to understand something. And I truly want you to understand something. Let me find this clown. Where's she at? Come here, clown.
Because this clown said she was staying in Venezuela. Here she is right here. Maxine, this should be on the whole screen. This clown right here. This clown says, what in the Sam hell just happened, boy? What in Sam hell just happened? This clown right here, breaking. Democrat Maxine Dexter says she will not leave El Salvador until Kilmar Abrega Garcia returns to the United States of America. This girl says she ain't leaving El Salvador. I want to find what she said it out of her own mouth because I just seen it. Here she is right here. Now, I need you to understand something. This thing right here represents an entire group of people. So you trying to tell me you don't neglect your duty to your nation until they free a damn criminal. And well, DW, he not a criminal. He need due process. Hey, man, the Negro came across the border illegally. He a criminal. Ain't like he ain't come over here. He ain't buy one of them $1 million green cards. He ain't buy a gold card. He a criminal. No matter how you look at it, he broke the law. And for those of you who be like, well, you know, we need to, I tell you what, this is what I want you to do. This is what I want you to do. I want you to, what's the fastest way to get your license suspended? This is what I want you to do. I want you to go out drinking tonight. I'm talking about get hammered, get pissy drunk. And then I don't want you to speed on the interstate. I just want you to get on the interstate and I want you to put it on cruise control at 25 miles an hour. Then when the police pull you over and they say, sir, have you been drinking? Say no. Then when they want you to blow, say you're not going to blow. All right. That should lead to them taking you in and you not blowing should lead to them blowing on a little breathalyzer should lead to them suspending your license. All right. Now that you're a criminal, you got a suspended license. The next thing I want you to do is I just want you to drive with no license. I'm talking about drive everywhere. I want you to pull in front of police stations and do donuts. I want you to speed through schools. No, don't speed through school zones. I want you to do everything I want you to run red lights. No, don't run red lights. Run stop signs. Do rolling stops. Stop beyond the white line. Do everything you can do to encounter the police. And then tell the police, say, officer, I don't feel like I'm a criminal. Yeah, I don't feel like I'm a criminal. Then let's get you locked up. But let's see how long this trick sit there and wait for you to get out of jail. Let's see how long Maxine Dexter wait for your black behind, your white behind, your yellow behind, your brown behind to get out of jail. Yeah, let's see how long she wait. Did I miss any colors? Your green behind, your lizard behind, your purple behind. Let's see how long she wait for any one of your colored butts to get out of prison. She ain't gonna wait. So to this lady's constituents, she is in El Salvador, where ain't no way in Sam hell this man is getting out of prison, and says she gonna stay there.
Congresswoman Maxine Dexter here.
Stop. Pause before this ugly thing start talking. I want to be clear with you. You see how I had to walk you through a process of going out of your way to become a criminal? I want you to understand that's what Garcia Grebigo or Kilmar Abrego Garcia did. He went out of his damn way to leave a whole country. He left a whole entire country and came to this country. He went a long way to break the law. You just like you went through a process, you went out to get drunk, then you had to get on the interstate, then you had to drive slow, then you had to deny the breathalyzer, then you had to go in, then they had to pull your blood, then you had to determine, then you had to lock you up, then you had to get bailed out, then you had to get a court date, then you got your driver's license suspended for a DUI, then you drove without a driver's license. You went through a long process. That's exactly what he did. He went through a long process to break the law. Except for when he got here, then he continued to break the law. And this trick is here. Listen to this heifer. Listen to this heifer.
Congresswoman Maxine Dexter here, coming to you from El Salvador. I flew here last night with 3 of my colleagues to demand that Kilmar Abrego Garcia be released. He is being held in violation of a Supreme Court order expressly telling the Trump administration to effectuate and facilitate his coming home. That is being reformed. This is not just a threat to all people in the United States. who could be illegally abducted, detained, and transported internationally against their will. But it is a fact that our president does not recognize the branches of government and the balances of power. This is what we all have been calling a constitutional crisis, yet it is more severe than anything we've seen. We cannot stay silent. We must stay loud. I am here because I refuse to wait for something to happen. We are here to release Kilmer Abrego Garcia.
Now, here's the craziest thing. They're doing this because they want a Pyrrhic victory. So, for example, I don't think the president of El Salvador is going to release this man under no circumstances. But if the president of El Salvador released him, then Donald Trump and them would have to facilitate his return. And so after his return is facilitated, they'll be like, well, Abrego Garcia came back to America. Then when they do, they'll try and halt the deportation by judge's order again and claim some kind of victory. I don't see the guy getting sent back. Quite frankly, I don't see there's any way around it. So think about it for a second. If this is your congresswoman, I mean, this your congresswoman. Did you vote for that? You know how people be like, did Trump supporters get what they're getting for voted for? Did the people who voted for Congresswoman Maxine Dexter, did you vote for this crap? Is that what you voted for? You voted for somebody to go to another country. In fact, it was 4 of them that went to another country. Let me find all 4 of them. It was counting 1, 2, 3, 4. It's 4 of them. Let's get all their names. Give me a second. All right. 4 Democratic House members arrive in El Salvador to visit MS-13 gangbanger Abrego Garcia. Trump administration responds by asking blunt questions. Now, I don't know what you could do, like from they're from the House. I don't know what you could do in the House because they're absent, but I would do something to force them to bring them back. I would have some kind of vote that they pay the price for because they're not there. I would be doing all kind of things. 4 House Democrats arrive in El Salvador Monday to meet with their new hero, MS-13 terrorist Kilmore. And it's funny, his name is Kilmore Abrego Garcia. Kilmore Abrego Garcia. And the visit did not go unnoticed by the Trump White House. Fox News reported Reps Robert Garcia of California, Maxwell Frost of Florida, Yasmina Anizra of Arizona, and Maxine Dexter of Oregon all announced in press releases they had arrived in El Salvador to pressure the Trump administration to abide by Supreme Court order to facilitate the return of Kilmore Abrego Garcia. Skip all that. Homeland Security. 4 more lawmakers just landed in El Salvador to meet and shake hands with a terrorist. All 4 of them voted against the Lincoln Riley Act. Wow. Why are these politicians putting terrorists illegally in our country over American victims? And I mean, man, that's the gamble they're taking. Whether the American public is going to say, hey, listen, we side with you protecting illegals. What I'm going to say to you is this. This issue shows me who are the Soros operatives in our government. Because no politician within their right mind would take this chance of alienating them from their constituents. So there's got to be more to it. There's something or someone who has control over you. And then it leads to the next thing that I'm going to talk about. I've been talking for a while, but that's okay. Y'all like when I do long videos. I want to go back to Breitbart News and I want to show you something else. Let me get to the Breitbart. I want to show you something else. Let me get there. Get there. If I can find it. If not, I'm just going to show somebody and I'm going to talk about it. I told you guys, I predicted there would be a war in the Democratic Party. And that war has started, and that war is ongoing. If I'm not mistaken, the California Democrats want to move to be more moderate. You're talking about Newsom and Pelosi and people of that nature because they know that all of this foolishness that's going on right now, let's just use his face for right now. You see, Governor Newsom and the rest of the San Francisco, Californian Democrats, they want to be more moderate because they know this is damaging their party to the point where you cannot repair it. Even Skeletor came out and said it himself. He was like, hey, don't call yourself Democrat. You can call yourself progressive or, whatever you want, but don't call yourselves Democrats. Skeletor looked like Skeletor always got whole bottles of liquor behind him. And so the Democratic Party fight is going on. And it's kind of like if you were a Democrat with any form of sense or any common sense, you sitting back looking and saying, damn, they're doing a lot of damage to the name of the Democratic Party. But the progressive left, the far left, doesn't care. This was the problem when they empowered them. Remember the squad came in? That was them empowering the far left. When they brought the squad in. The bald head chick, the Somalian chick, the other two women, all our other Muslim women that they brought in, they empowered the far left women to fight against Donald Trump. And if I want you to notice something, from that far left brought Buttigieg and all the rest of these far left people. And so now it's gotten out of control. And eventually it birthed AOC, the barista that ended up going to Congress. You see what I'm saying? And so now it's far out of control. They can't control it. And they're trying to reel it back in. But no, you done made a 10,000 pound gorilla, 100-ton gorilla, and it's running around breaking your party. And the problem is that full manifestation of the break-in doesn't happen until there's some form of general election. In the confines of the liberal, far leftist echo chamber, they're going to seem right because people like, go down to El Salvador and go down there and you free that terrorist. The same thing we saw from the church in Florida. That's an echo chamber. We're praying for the MS-13 satanic gang member who trafficked children and smuggled and murdered people, and because he's like the thief that was on the cross next to Jesus. And we pray that the people in power who wear crosses on their neck will be more like Jesus and allow us to have more sex trafficking and more rape and more murder and more they, them, it's. And we're going to put some barbed wire around the candle, a black